darlings, in this video I'll show you how to sew a straight seam on a sewing machine, one of the most useful techniques in sewing, used to join two pieces of fabric together. Depending on your fabric, it's best practice to secure your seam before machine sewing. For example, I'm sewing a lightweight calico fabric, so I've pinned the layers together. Make sure the right sides of the fabric are facing together before securing the seam. I also have a video about different ways to secure seams before sewing, which I've linked in the description below, so check that out if you'd like more detail. Before we start sewing, make sure your machine is set up correctly. Every sewing machine is a little different, so always refer to your sewing machine manual for the best guidance. That means using the correct needle and thread for your fabric, attaching a standard zigzag presser foot, threading the machine properly, and doing a quick test on scrap fabric to check the tension. For example, I'm using a lightweight calico fabric, a size 70 or 10 universal needle, polyester sew-all thread, and a standard zigzag presser foot. My machine is set to a centre aligned straight stitch, a stitch length of 2.5, and a thread tension of 4. If you're unsure how to do this, I've linked related videos in the description below with more detail to help you. Pull the presser foot lever upwards to raise the presser foot. Place the layers of fabric under the presser foot, aligning the fabric edge with the seam guide line on the throat plate. In this example, I'm using the 5/8 of an inch guide, which is one of the most common seam allowances in garment sewing. If your throat plate markings are difficult to see, place a strip of tape on the machine bed to create a more visible guide. You can also use a magnetic seam guide, which attaches directly to the throat plate. Smooth both threads towards the back of the machine. This helps prevent tangling and keeps the stitches neat when you begin sewing. Turn the hand wheel towards you to lower the needle into the fabric, about 1 centimetre from the edge. Push the presser foot lever downwards to lower the presser foot and hold the fabric in place. Lightly hold the threads and gently press the foot pedal to sew a couple of stitches forward. Release the threads, then press and hold the reverse stitch button. Sew a few stitches backwards to secure the seam and prevent it from unravelling. Make sure you stitch directly over the line you just sewed. For fine or delicate fabrics, skip this step as backstitching may cause the seam edge to pucker. Release the reverse stitch button and continue sewing forwards. Gently guide the fabric along the seam guide line, allowing the feed dogs to move the fabric naturally. Try not to pull or push the fabric through the machine. And remember, never sew over pins. Remove them before they reach the presser foot to avoid damaging your machine or affecting your stitching. When you reach the end, press and hold the reverse stitch button again and sew a few stitches backwards to secure the seam. Again, make sure you stitch directly over the line you just sewed. And as mentioned before, skip this step if you're sewing with fine or delicate fabrics. Raise the presser foot and gently remove the fabric, drawing the threads towards the back of the machine. Pull the threads up and into the thread cutter. This trims them to the ideal length for your next seam. My thread cutter is a little temperamental, so I'm using embroidery scissors instead. Now that you sew your seam, you'll usually need to finish the raw edges and then press the seam. I've linked videos on both those techniques in the description below. Before sewing your actual project, always practice on scrap fabric first. This helps you check stitch quality and thread tension before sewing on your final fabric. For most standard seams, a stitch length between 2 and 3 works best. Never focus on the needle while sewing. It's much easier to sew a straight line when you can keep your eyes on the seam guideline instead. If the throat plate markings are difficult to see, use a strip of tape to create a highly visible guide. You can also use a magnetic seam guide attached to the throat plate for extra accuracy. Pulling the fabric instead of letting the feed dogs move it naturally, forgetting to backstitch at the beginning and end of the seam, messy backstitching. When reversing, make sure you sew directly over your original stitching line. If the backstitching moves off at an angle, it can show on the right side of the garment and make the seam look untidy. Incorrect thread tension causing loose or tight stitches, and skipping a test stitch on scrap fabric before sewing the final project. For more sewing Bexpertise, I've linked helpful videos in the description below. Please don't forget to subscribe, and as always, happy sewing!